My name is Tom Kling. My wife and I live here in Evanston, Illinois, just north of Chicago. I am lucky enough to still have my mother, who is going on 102. She'll reach that point on Christmas Day this year. And our family has used most of our resources over the last 3 to 4 years to keep her at home, using talented professionals around the clock. And as of this moment, she's in good hands, in fairly good shape for a woman of her years. I love her dearly. She was born in Stuttgart, Germany in 1913. She and her brother and her mother came to New York in 1924. Her father had come earlier. He was a chef. He wanted to get settled and found that Chicago was a better choice. So the four of them eventually came here. My mother's brother was a highly esteemed industrial designer. He created the Shell logo for the oil company, the design for it, the IH for International Harvester, the Greyhound symbol on the side of Greyhound buses. And he had a large hand in the design of the Avanti sports car developed by Studebaker in the early 1960s. My mother was in awe of him. He was exceptionally gifted, as was she. And she had her own little art world where she created this and that, and she may have sold items. We never really talked much about that. I just know that if you were to go around her apartment today and look at the work that she has created, you would be impressed. She met my father probably around 1938. In Chicago, they met at a beer garden on North Avenue. It was an arranged meeting by some friends, and they vowed to marry probably when the war was over. My dad shipped out in 1942, early after Pearl Harbor. And my mom went with him to New York to stay over one night to see him off. But she couldn't let her mother find out, or her father, because, well, this was 1942. And she did see my father off as he was sent to England to work in the Army Air Force. And she thought she had pulled off the rendezvous with my dad very well, without anyone knowing in the family, until her mother got a card addressed to my mom saying, "So nice of you. So nice of you to spend your one night in New York at the, I believe, the Roosevelt Hotel on 46th Street." And her mother said, as my mother often said to me when I made mistakes, I was young once too. They married in 1948, lived in an apartment in Edgewater, in the neighborhood of Chicago, for about 5 years. Apartments were hard to get, I was told. The apartment belonged to my cousins and their parents. And I was born. My parents always would mention after, to anyone who would listen, that I was the most planned baby ever. And by the time I was 5, we had moved out to the suburbs, out to Lincolnwood, where there was a yard, where there were trees. I can remember one tableau. I had a dachshund hunt, and we had an outdoor pool in our backyard. The pool was maybe 10 feet across by 5 feet, maybe 18 inches deep, made of plastic, and the dog loved to jump in the water and play with me. I just can remember now so clearly how. She came out that bright afternoon with a tuna fish sandwich, my favorite at the time, and a glistening glass bottle of Pepsi-Cola. And with my dog lying on a little raft and I lying in the water, my Doxy and I just took in the beauty of life. She was so devoted to me and to my dad, and then to Nancy, who was born in 1957. My mother gave everything to being a mother, being a good, devoted wife, my God. Our family was everything to her. I can remember a column I read once, and one that I remember clearly to this day, was entitled "The Woman in the Photograph." It was his mother sitting on a sofa with his father, recently returned from the good war. And in the essay, he wrote about his mother and her advanced degrees and just how gifted and talented she was. But then again, how selfless she was, because when the kids came, when he came, when his brother and his sister came, she devoted everything to them and to their father. Just like Kling, my mom. She was always helping others, always saw social injustice very clearly, spoke out about it, always helped others in need. Other than our family, that was her top priority in life. And fortunately, I think she passed that on to her kids. My dad had an enlarged heart throughout all of his adult life. It was formed by a valve that was not properly constructed at birth. And when it was his turn to go into the Army, Air Force, he gladly volunteered and was rejected. They told him, "Mr. Kling, you're going to die in the battlefield with this heart." He still went, and was as healthy as a horse, or we thought. He had his first heart attack in 1976. It was a horrible one. Dr. Niequin at Swedish Covenant Hospital in Chicago, where he was delivered, said it was the worst heart attack he'd ever seen. He got through it. 6 weeks in intensive care. My mother got him through it. I remember she was so flustered that she began to lose her hair. She would regrow it. And between that year, 1976, when my own son was just 2, and 1988, my dad and my mom, my whole family was doing quite well. My dad suffered another heart attack in '88. It would do him in after 3 years. If there were an example of how a human being would take care of a very, very sick person, there it was, in that house in Lincolnwood, my mother playing multiple roles, doting on him like I could never. He was cremated on Good Friday, 1991, March 29th. My mother went on. She moved into a condominium in Glenview, where she lives still today. And because my dad had done well in business, he had a paint business, and he had quite a bit of assets when he passed away. She has been able to live in that condo all these years. Over the last few years, things have gotten difficult. We have currently 9 people working with her. We have an outstanding woman who comes every night, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and stays from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Daytimes, we have something unbelievable. We have a woman who works for an agency who just happened to be from Stuttgart. Born in Stuttgart, the same city my mother came from. And she works with my mom with some help from a younger woman. And frankly, certainly helps keep my mother alive. My niece, Natalie, my sister's daughter, works Wednesday and Sunday and has a great partner to work with both of those days. I have been doing everything possible over the last 3 years to keep my mom at home. This YouTube video you're seeing is part of my plan to keep enough money in our coffers to keep my mom at home. This is a priority whose magnitude I don't think I could truly articulate. I know that if the tables were turned and somehow my mother could grow young as I grow old, if it came to a place where I was at the precipice, she'd be doing this and more for me or my sister. So I guess this is payback. Payback for a wonderful childhood I had that my sister had that could only have been created out of love and devotion. And I'm trying to bring a good degree of love and devotion now to this phase of my mom's life, from me and from Nancy, from all our family. I would so appreciate if you would consider donating whatever amount you could afford to go GoFundMe.com website /keep-mom-at-home. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this.